Okay, folks. So we've sensed, kind of a sea change around the Israel-Palestine issue in public opinion. I think I don't want to say we've turned the corner because we've turned corners before, but between the boycott bill failing and student protesters being released, there has been some in the way of good signs over the past week or so, and this is of course one of those here. Sorry about that. Tufts University student Rümeysa Öztürk returns to Massachusetts after being released on bail. So she has been freed now, and her court will be heard. I mean, her case will be heard with her at home and not in jail, which is a good sign. Rümeysa Öztürk, a 30-year-old Turkish doctoral candidate at Boston's Tufts University who was detained by Immigration and Customs Enforcement back in March, returned to Massachusetts on Saturday after a judge ordered she be released. Öztürk spoke at a news conference Boston Logan International Airport Saturday evening alongside Democratic Senator Ed Markey and Democratic Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley. During the Friday hearing, Öztürk and her lawyers argued that her due process and First Amendment rights were violated when she was taken into custody by plainclothes ICE officers in March. U.S. District Judge William Sessions presided over the case and said that the Trump administration had not provided any evidence for her detainment besides an op-ed she co-authored in the Tufts student newspaper last year. The op-ed centered Israel's war with Hamas. That's not really true. The op-ed was specifically about Tufts University divesting from Israel, and it called for them to take up a resolution passed by the student body or whatever the hell it was. But it was a very, very procedural op-ed. It wasn't even so much philosophical or even political in that sense in the way that they're framing it. Certainly no mention of terrorism or Hamas or anything. It was just completely absurd that was enough to put her on their radar. The only reason she was put on their radar is because groups like Batar and Canary Mission clearly are keeping a list of pro-Palestine activists, and we did a segment on this a while back. There's actually a field that you fill out when you are outing a pro-Palestine organizer. There's a field where you check their immigration status. So it's clear that the government is getting a list from these types of organizations and that she was on it because the evidence was non-existent. The Trump administration has said that piece was the main reason her student visa was revoked. During the hearing, one of her attorneys said that allowing her to remain in custody proves that you can be detained thousands of miles from your home for more than 6 weeks for writing a single news article. Öztürk does not have a criminal record, and there is no record of her engaging or encouraging violence, Sessions said. So this is the op-ed. Try again, President Kumar, renewing calls for Tufts to adopt March 4th TCU Senate resolutions. Right? So it was some, piece of writing that was passed through the student body that, they wanted the university to take up. This was as benign as it gets. I encourage you to read it. Just Google Tufts Daily Rümeysa Öztürk. You can read the whole thing. It's too boring for us to read. Like, it would take 6 or 7 minutes. And I don't want to bore you for 7 minutes to prove a point that there's nothing in here that even resembles the kinds of evidence that they claim to have, even though, of course, the Washington Post had an exclusive on this. We did a whole segment on this. The Washington Post found no evidence linking Tufts student to anti-Semitism or terrorism, State Department office found. So no evidence against her whatsoever. They did it anyway. So, obviously, Frankie here says a judge has decided to release Tufts Uni doctoral student Rümeysa Öztürk from ICE custody after her visa was revoked by the government. Caroline Levitt on the judge ordering. So here is the White House press secretary responding to this.
The Department of Homeland Security on that particular case, but I think our overall feeling, we've made quite clear that lower level judges should not be dictating the foreign policy of the United States, and we absolutely believe that the President and the Department of Homeland Security are well within their legal rights to deport illegal immigrants. As for visa revocations, the Secretary of State has the right to do that as well. It is a privilege, not a right, to come to this country on a visa.
Okay, so they are sticking with that line. Pretty incredible. So here's a tweet of Rümeysa Öztürk outside of the facility, thanking some supporters who showed up to cheer her release.
Love you! Thank you so much for all the support and love. I am a little bit tired, so I will take some rest, but I really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for all the support and love. Thank you so much
Thank
for all
you
the
so
support.
much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Safe travels home.
Wow.
How long was she in the joint? A month?
I think about 6 weeks. What was that, third week of March? So yeah, about 6 weeks. 6 weeks in jail. I mean, look at her. She's like a sweet. I mean, as non-threatening as a person could be.
Thank you so much for all the support and love. I am a little bit tired, so I will take some rest, but I really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for all the support and love. Thank you so much
Thank
for all
you
the
so
support.
much.
So when she got to Massachusetts, obviously she made a speech here. Rümeysa Öztürk, 30-year-old Turkish doctoral student at Tufts, calls the United States the greatest democracy in the world and says she has faith in the American justice system. Let's take a listen to this.
Case in the courts. I will continue my case in the courts. I came to United States to pursue my graduate studies, learn and grow as a scholar, and also to contribute to child development fields with my teaching, research, and applied work. America is the greatest democracy in the world, and I believe in those values that we share. I have faith in the American system of justice. This has been a very difficult time for me, for my community at Tufts, at Turkey, but I'm so grateful for all the support, kindness, and care. My advisor sent me my dissertation proposal to the prison. My lab mates have been reading me books on the phone that are very old. And my department professor students have sent me so many letters of support, so many supports, so much love and comforting words. My union organized on behalf of me and other international students with so much effort, love, and care. I had so many lovely people sending me letters, comforting words again. So thank you all. And finally, I will also remind one more time, please don't forget about all these wonderful women in the immigration detention systems. I was so tired of witnessing cries and pain that can be all preventable. Thank you.
So, one thing that jumps out is her, expression of faith in the American system, despite everything that the system has put her through. But she's not unique in that respect. So Mohsen Madawi, who was the Columbia student who was detained and he was released last week, he wrote an op-ed that was printed in the New York Times. I was detained for my beliefs. Who will be next? Now, originally, this op-ed was titled based on this passage here. Despite spending 16 nights in a jail cell, I never lost hope in the inevitability of justice and the principles of democracy. I wanted to become a citizen of this country because I believe in the principles that it enshrines. When Judge Jeffrey Crawford ruled in my favor, he reassured me, along with the American people, that there is still reason to hope in those principles. But the road to justice is long. My freedom is intertwined with the freedom of the other students who exercise the same free speech rights as I did, yet languish in jail, and is intertwined with that of the Palestinians who are fighting for their right to life and justice, too. And let's not forget, Makmoud Khalil, still in jail, missed the birth of his newborn son a few weeks ago, and printed this op-ed in The Guardian out, I believe this was either yesterday or today. This is hot off the press. To my newborn son, I am absent, not out of apathy, but conviction. So he writes, Dean, that's his newborn. My heart aches that I could not hold you in my arms and hear your first cry, that I could not unfurl your clenched fists or change your first diaper. I am sorry that I was not there to hold your mother's hand or recite the Adhan or call to prayer in your ear, but my absence is not unique. Like other Palestinian fathers, I was separated from you, by racist regimes and distant prisons. In Palestine, this pain is part of daily life. Babies are born every day without their fathers, not because their fathers chose to leave, but because they are taken by war, by bombs, by prison cells, and by the cold machinery of occupation. The grief your mother and I feel is but one drop in a sea of sorrow that Palestinian families have drowned in for generations. And this is a picture that Makmoud's wife submitted to The Guardian for publication. She cropped the baby's face out of the image for safety reasons, of course, but this was sent to The Guardian. Beautiful little baby girl holding a picture of her mom and dad. And so while we have two wins on the board here in terms of Madawi and Öztürk being freed, we still have a man who is not here on a visa, but here on a green card, a permanent legal resident, a man with every right to call this country his home, is in jail for expressing an opinion. I want to repeat that. A man who has every right to call this country with an enshrined First Amendment his home is in jail for having expressed the wrong opinion according to the United States government. And yet, despite this, we still have the first two people in the segment, these two protesters, Öztürk and Madawi, expressing this faith in the system. A mutual friend of ours, I won't say his name, although he's not a shy guy. He's from India, but I believe his parents were Muslim, so he comes from a Muslim background. I don't know if he's practicing. I don't think he is. But he texted me the Madawi op-ed, and he says, he said to me, he says, you know, Muslims and Arabs are the last people to give up on this country, no matter how much this country beats up on them. Like, even the MAGA people will become disillusioned with America before the Muslims and the Arabs do. He says he doesn't understand it. He texted me. He loved the piece that we did where we talked about, hey, you know, if I were Mahmoud, I would tell the government, you know what? Let me out. I'll leave. Let's not bother. Go find a place that treats you better. He seems to agree with me on that, but he says there's something about the Muslim and Arab community that feels a sense of hope in this place, despite the fact that we abuse them over and over and over again, both around the world and here at home. You know, and this is something like, you know, growing up, I grew up in a very diverse area. It was a third brown, a third black, a third white was the school district I went to. There were a lot of Arab and Muslim kids in my school. I remember being in junior high after 9/11, the shit they dealt with, they took it in stride, man. They didn't fight back. They turned the other cheek. They're very humble, and I don't know what it is in them, but they have faith in this country that I certainly don't. And I don't know how to explain that. I admire it in a certain sense. I think it's admirable. I think it's kind of noble, but it's not something I share, to be honest. If I were these guys, I would say, you know what? I'm not welcome here. See ya. Fuck you.
I don't know how universal that is. I worked for many years with Turkish fellow carriage drivers, and a lot of things I must say that I believe now, as a matter of course, I heard first from them. Like the idea that, because I was actually working that job during the Iraq War, and they were saying they are not doing this so badly by accident. They want the Middle East to be completely dysfunctional. They want everybody fighting each other. This is the plan. They never wanted that to be a functional state. They don't want these places to be strong. And I thought that was very conspiratorial. Now, of course, I'm like, yeah, of course. But my politics were much more New York Timesy back then. So they certainly didn't think that way. Like they were pretty skeptical.
Oh yeah, no, look,
of the United
that,
States
yeah.
foreign policy and its motives. I think you see that with some people. I don't know. I don't know if you could even get honest polling on that, on what the percentage would be, because people would be afraid to answer it honestly, probably. My experience was, I got to say, man, none of the guys I worked with had a positive attitude towards America. And I used to say to them, well, so what are you doing here? They would say, well, because of the way that America has rigged the world economy, you have to come here for the money. They didn't
Right.
want to be here. They hated it here.
It's funny in that vein when back when we were Democrats, it was 2006, and I was, what was I, 19 at the time? Yeah, we were campaigning for John Hall, who was running for Congress against the incumbent Republican in the district that's currently, I forget who represents it now. They redrew it anyway. Anyway, that doesn't matter. Point is, you know, like I said, I've been somewhat of a 9/11 truther since 2002. When I was a kid, I figured out, hey, you know, if they're lying about Iraq, that must mean they're lying about 9/11 because 9/11 is the excuse to go to Iraq. So it just makes logical sense that 9/11.
Yeah,
is,
man, those guys, I wouldn't say they all believed this, but a good number
yeah.
of them believed that Osama bin Laden was an actor working for the CIA.
Well,
Like a
my
lot of them
father,
believed that.
I started talking to my father about that, and he didn't really believe it, you know. But I guess I bothered him enough about it to the point where when he was canvassing, we were canvassing in the parking lot of a Walmart, and he goes up to this Arab and Muslim guy, and they start talking about the Iraq War because that the 2006 midterms are very much a referendum on that.
Right.
And so, you know, he was asking about what he thinks about the Iraq War and blah blah blah. They get to talking, and so my dad says, you know, a lot of people. He didn't say his son. He said, you know, a lot of people, you know, seem to think that, you know, 9/11, that the government may have been behind 9/11, and that was the pretext for all this. And the guy laughs. The guy says, of course they did 9/11. Like,
Right.
like he was like, yeah, of course, obviously.
Yeah.
Like he was like,
So-
oh, you're,
so,
like, you're
yeah.
getting super close to me and saying this like it's some secret. You
Right,
know, the Arab
right.
guy's
So-
like, yeah, of course they did it. What are you stupid?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I wouldn't buy that the Arab or Muslim community uniquely have faith in America. I think just like all immigrant groups from countries where the economy and the politics in many respects are even worse, some of them wind up still seeing America as this land of opportunity compared to where they came from.
Right.
So you'll see that in all immigrant communities, but I don't know if it's on the whole. I would say probably in theory, if you really got Muslims, to be honest with you, probably less of them think that than other immigrant groups that come here, if I had to guess, because of their unique experience with our tender mercies in their lands.
Could be. I mean, could be. But I do notice, like, yeah, man, like, you know, for these kids to come out of this hopeful, maybe it's a reflection of the fact that, like, they're educated. So maybe they like this crop has made a bigger investment in America than
Maybe.
horse and carriage drivers because they're more blue collar. Yeah, we're just here to get paid. Whereas, you know, when you go to an Ivy League university,
Well,
like
those
this
guys,
is
those
why-
guys were all on student visas. They were all.
Oh,
gone.
really? Okay. Well,
Yeah,
I mean, this
yeah.
is why, like, you know, those student protests were such a threat, and this is why they had to crack down on them, especially the Ivy League protests, Harvard, UPenn, Columbia, because those kids are the establishment of tomorrow. So they can't have those kinds of ideas, these pro-Palestine ideas, proliferate in those environments because they're the next CEOs, they're the next Congress people, they're the next governors, you know, they're the next head of whatever foundations, you know, spring up. And so maybe that has something to do with it. But for whatever reason, glad they are out of jail, and what they do next is up to them. But they're expressing a confidence in the system that is more than I can muster.
It's quite remarkable, and I will just say about Öztürk, my experience working with Turkish people is she really reminded me of how warm and humble they are as a people. They tend to be very kind, very generous, very hospitable, with a deep humility, qualities that we just don't have as a culture.
Yeah, no, when my twins were born, my neighbors across the hall in our apartment building, they were Turkish. They cooked us food for like a month after my kids were born. They'd bring us 2 meals a day.
Very nice people. They're
Yeah.
very nice.
Please clap.